So, a man who once flew through traffic on a rebuilt 56 Harley 74 with a suicide shift, power jumped with hot cams, now puttered down Main Street in a Chevy Nova. He could not fraternize with any of his old buddies or one-percenters. So he lived in exile among the last chance services off the highway, where it dropped downhill toward speckled desert. In this clutter of trailers, scrap tin, and corrugated titanium awnings, Link had soldered his life back together with God and cigarettes. But most of all, Kirby knew about his daughter, the one story Link would never tell at a meeting. Once Link had encouraged the smug DUI to keep coming back, Kirby followed him to his car. Link appreciated the old guy's efforts to be helpful, even when he sometimes looked so damned pious, as if heaven would owe him his own cloud. Kirby asked Link if he wanted to have a cup of coffee someplace. Link said, "I got a lady coming at 2. Lives just down the road." "Decent work?" "Nah, she just wants a snake crawling out of her sock," he said, raising his steel-toed boot and slapping the ankle. "First installment. Biblical thing, you know. Then she's talking about Adam and Eve and that whole situation." "But the serpent first?" said Kirby. "Yeah, well, probably saving up for paradise." 3 hours later, Link had been overcome by ambition, and his subject had allowed him to extend the scope of his project. Working in his trailer, shading the last scales in the serpent's body where it twisted around the knee, Link had modeled the tattoo on Leonardo da Vinci's The Fall, mostly because he loved raiding pictures from old art books. Maybe in order to escape his dreary feeling after the noon meeting, he had settled nicely into a groove and did some of the best sweep shading he'd done in months. Onto her shin, he feathered lighter, water-diluted green between the scales, and, around her calf, he made the snake pass through a simulated shadow. The woman was a talker, though, and her chatter kept drawing him out of his trance. Lounging back on the lifter bench, a cigarette between her lobster-colored fingernails, she grimaced and confessed about cheating on her husband. Why did people always expect Link to have some ready-made advice for bad situations? Something about the low-grade pain and the long penitent hours. It made too many clients treat him like a therapist or a priest. He grunted whenever she paused. He knew he would remember the snake on her leg forever, but probably not a single detail from the woman's depressing life. His memory was a tangle of isolated arms and torsos, skin and pigments and blemishes. After all the time he'd spent doing blue tats in the joint, first with the Polynesian method of dots from a straight pin, then with a homemade gun, slot car motor, hollowed-out pen, ink tubes, guitar strings, and a 9-volt battery, the years were a blur of cobwebs, clocks without hands, shamrocks, pentagrams, crying women, and granite walls. He kept his tools clean. He worked on any gang sign or religious conversion, on everything from numbers around an eye socket to crucifixes on the neck. Soon he was collaborating with the subjects, making stencils off the library's single art book broken at the spine. He carved a Chagall into a Ukrainian car thief, and he still recalled how the veins stood up on his pale arms like on the underside of a leaf, though he couldn't picture a thing about the kid's face. Of all his projects, it was fitting that the only convict he knew and remembered well was the one whose tat he had never finished. Arturo Rios Tejada, temporary cellmate, shot caller in La M, had wanted, beneath the usual snake-eating eagle, a landscape of his vario across his broad back, done epic style, like a Hieronymus Bosch, sinners and saints, demons and angels, vying for space on a hill of tombstones and shanties, rising toward a halo of hazy California sunshine. Rios was a good canvas, a wide stretch of parchment-colored skin, and he was usually silent.